Today's lesson is called History and Legends in Brno. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff.
I am Roger, and today we're going to continue talking about the second largest city in the Czech Republic. All of you are experienced travelers, you're worldly people, you're cosmopolitan, and you've been to all the major capitals in the world: Paris, London, Madrid, Berlin. You've been to all those places, including Prague, but now you'd like to go to someplace less crowded with tourists. You want to go to those second most popular destinations in these particular countries, and now you want to go to Brno in the Czech Republic. And it's smaller than Prague, but it has lots of things to check out.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you took a trip to the United States and you said, you know what, forget New York City. Let's go to the second city there. Let's go ahead and visit Chicago instead. Is that going to be a terrible vacation? No! Chicago is filled with great stuff that you can do, and so is Brno. Let's go ahead and talk not about Los Angeles or about Chicago, but the second city there in the Czech Republic. We'll start talking about this place once again right after a short break.
Pieces of Brno's past can also be found under the city's streets. One underground area called the Labyrinth under the Vegetable Market is a system of tunnels and cellars that stored food from the market and served as a shelter during war. Guided tours of this complex also introduced torture methods once used to punish dishonest dealers and tricky traders.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 cellar， 这个字是名词，指地窖、地下室。例如 Before refrigerators, food that needed to be kept cool could be stored in a cellar. 在还没有冰箱以前，需要冷藏的食物会被存放在地窖里。或是 The old house had a wine cellar where hundreds of bottles were kept. 这个老房子曾经有一个酒窖，存放了上百瓶酒。
Okay, well, in today's program, we're going to talk about some other nice destinations. Pieces of Brno's past can also be found under the city's streets. If you're in a city and you go under the streets, oftentimes that means that you are taking the metro someplace. You're taking the subway or the underground. But in this particular case, under the city streets is actually a tourist destination. I've heard of something like this in Paris, like the catacombs of Paris. That's under the streets there. Lots of people have gone there. But I guess they have something similar in Brno as well.
Yeah, I've heard that in Paris they do have the catacombs, and there are some places you're not allowed to go. They're very strictly restricted places. You can't go to this place or that place. But here they encourage you to visit some of these places found under the city streets. It says, one underground area called the Labyrinth under the Vegetable Market is a system of tunnels and cellars that stored food from the market and served as a shelter during war. So a cellar. Usually when I think of a cellar, I think of a dark, cold room that's underground where you can store wine and other things like that. Very often people put their wine bottles, the wine they're going to drink, in cellars. Kind of a cold, underground place that doesn't get too much light. That would be a cellar. C-E-L-L-A-R, cellar. Now, it also says that this particular labyrinth served as a shelter during war. So if you were in harm's way, if you were in danger, if your house exploded or something like that, and you had no place to go and you wanted to be safe, you could go to this place, this shelter.
Yeah, if the Russians were attacking or something like that, and they were dropping bombs, you could go into this labyrinth labyrinth under the vegetable market and seek shelter there. I did want to mention that the word labyrinth is similar in meaning to the word maze, which I believe is migong in Chinese. But a maze is a kind of something that people make on purpose for people to go into and see if they can find their way out. A labyrinth in this particular case refers to lots of passageways, usually underground, going this way and that way. It can seem like a maze sometimes. Okay, so let's move on now to the next sentence. It says, guided tours of this complex also introduce torture methods once used to punish dishonest dealers and tricky traders. That's pretty cool there. This is a complex. It's got lots of rooms and tunnels and stuff like that. And you could also learn about these different torture methods. Torture is when you make someone hurt a lot. You inflict a lot of pain on them, usually in order to get information. Sometimes you just do it because you enjoy inflicting pain on other people.
Yeah, if you're a particularly cruel and nasty human being, you might like to torture people or animals or something. But for the most part, I think in this particular situation, these torture methods were used to punish bad people. Now, is torture a good thing? Of course not. I've got to say, it sounds like a few hundred years ago that this probably would have been kind of a scary place to be. But hey, the darkness in their past, that's all in the past. It's a thing of the past. You don't need to worry about that one bit. But if you still want to get a bit of a scare, we've got something for you guys coming up next, right after a short break.
For something spookier, visit the Brno ossuary. The underground rooms contain the bones of about 50,000 victims of war and plague over the centuries. Stacked neatly on top of one another like bricks in a wall, the bones will send shivers down your spine. Finally, never leave the city without visiting the old town hall and the Brno dragon suspended from its ceiling. According to legend, this beast put terror into the heart of Brno until a butcher found a way to kill it. Today, those who look closely enough will notice that this animal is not a dragon, but actually a large crocodile.
第二部分我们看到形容词 spooky 指阴森可怕的，像是 Donna enjoys reading spooky stories. Donna 喜欢阅读恐怖故事。接着我们看到单字 plague 这个字是名词，指瘟疫、鼠疫。例如 Many people died during the plague that swept through the country. 许多人死于那场席卷全国的瘟疫。另外这个字也可以当动词，指使受灾祸、折磨。举例来说 I was plagued by guilt after forgetting my mother's birthday. 忘记母亲的生日让我饱受愧疚感。再补充几个相关片语。第一 avoid something like the plague 表示是……如瘟疫般避之不及。像是Pauline is afraid of dogs, so she avoids them like the plague. 怕狗的 Pauline 对狗避之唯恐不及。第二 be plagued with something 表示因某事饱受痛苦或折磨。我们可以说 The company has been plagued with recalls for the past 6 years. 这家公司过去6年来饱受产品回收之苦。再来我们看到动词 stack 指堆放、堆叠，像是The college student stacked her textbooks into 2 piles. 那位大学生把教科书堆成2叠。另外，这个字也可以当名词，指一堆、一叠。例如 Looking at the stack of files on his desk, Kyle knows he has to work overtime today. 看着他桌上一叠档案 Kyle 知道他今天必须加班。再补充几个相关片语。第一 stack up against 表示相比、匹敌。举例来说The old model of the car doesn't stack up against the new one. 这款旧型车比不上新款的那一辆。第二 be stacked against somebody 表示情况不利于某人。我们可以说 The odds are stacked against people who visit casinos. 去赌场的人赢钱的机会都不大。接下来我们看到单字 suspend 这个字是动词，指悬挂、终止、暂停。例如The band suspended a banner with their logo on it behind them. 那个乐团在身后挂着一个上面有乐团标志的布条。或是 The train company suspended operations during the storm. 火车公司在暴风雨期间暂停营运。
Okay, let's look at the second part of our lesson for today. We've been talking about the labyrinth under the vegetable market. That's another place in Brno that you can check out. And it would be of extra interest to people who want to know how people were tortured back in those days. But here's something even spookier, something even scarier. Visit the Brno ossuary. Here we've got the word spookier. Yeah, spooky, of course. That just means something is very, very scary. But in any case here, yes, if you want to see something even scarier or spookier, then there's this ossuary. That has to do with bones, right?
It has to do with bones. Get this, the underground rooms contain the bones of about 50,000 victims of war and plague over the centuries. So, when war strikes, when there's a plague and all these people are dying left and right, what do we do with these dead bodies and bones and stuff like that? Well, apparently you take them to an ossuary. And yes, this is kind of spooky. We're talking about the bones of about 50,000 people. Yeah, that's pretty spooky. I can't think of many things spookier than that. By the way, when we're talking about plague, we're talking about a vicious illness that strikes quickly and takes the lives of many, many people. Like in 1918, there was an influenza outbreak that you could have called a plague. It killed millions and millions of people.
Or the Black Death in Europe, that was a plague as well. So yeah, they had to put these bodies somewhere, so they stuck them in these underground rooms. And, of course, that happened over many centuries and stacked neatly on top of one another like bricks in a wall. The bones will send shivers down your spine. Ooh, wow. Can you imagine those people were all living at one time and they died and their bodies were stuck down here? And in this particular case, the bodies are stacked neatly on top of one another like bricks in a wall. So you know what that means if you have bricks stacked in a wall. They are neatly stacked there. You've got the row on the bottom and then the next row in which they overlap, and it just keeps going up layer after layer. It's kind of the same thing in this ossuary where they've got the bones stacked on top of one another. It's very neat, it's very clean, and still it's going to send shivers down your spine.
Yeah, oh, right now I'm shaking myself. I'm getting, those weird shivers down my spine because I'm spooked out. I'm creeped out. You can use this phrase when you're feeling in this particular way. Anyways, yes, moving on. Finally, never leave the city without visiting the old town hall and the Brno dragon suspended from its ceiling. So there you go. Go to the old town hall and stay for the dragon. It's suspended from its ceiling or hanging there from the ceiling.
Looks kind of cool, I can imagine, but here we've got a pattern here. Never leave the city without doing something. So I could say, for example, never leave Taiwan without visiting Taroko Gorge. You'll really regret it if you don't go there during your trip. Or never leave New York without seeing the Statue of Liberty. You could apply this pattern in lots of different places.
There you go. Now let's go ahead and move on and learn some more about this dragon. According to legend, this beast put terror into the heart of Brno until a butcher found a way to kill it. So here the legend responsible for slaying this beast was a butcher. How interesting. Anyways, this beast apparently put terror into the heart of this particular city. It made everybody in this particular city super scared. Yes, if you are terrified, let's say, you are very scared. If something puts terror into you, they make you feel this fear, this terror.
Yep, to put terror into your heart, to really scare you. And in this particular case, we've got a butcher. A butcher, of course, is a person who cuts up animals for for meat. Butchers oftentimes work in supermarkets. And in any case, this particular butcher knew a thing or two about cutting into animals with big knives, so he figured out a way to kill this dragon. And today, those who look closely enough will notice that this animal is not a dragon, but actually a large crocodile.
Wait. So it's a crocodile.
Yeah, isn't that the same thing as an alligator? Or similar?
They're kind of similar, but I was thinking like a fire-breathing creature that can fly and stuff like that, but this is just a crocodile.
Right. Well, I guess it kind of looks like a dragon, so maybe in those days, they didn't have eyeglasses or something, so to them they thought it was a dragon when it actually was a crocodile. But still, a crocodile is a pretty scary creature, and you want a butcher to kill it.
Or Michael J. Crocodile Dundee. Anyways, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a short break. But when we come back, we'll be wrapping up our lesson on Brno.
All in all, Brno is a city that calls out to travelers with its colorful legends and rich history. If you ever get the chance, make sure you stop by this charming Czech city.
最后第三部分我们看到片语 all in all 表示总而言之从各方面来说举例来说 all in all the outdoor concert went really well even though it rained 总的来说即使下雨这场户外音乐会仍然进行得很顺利
Okay, so here we begin the final paragraph of our lesson with the phrase all in all. That's something you say when you want to wrap up what you're saying. You want to stop talking about it and give some kind of conclusion. So all in all, to sum up or in summary.
Taken together.
Yep, indeed. If you think about everything all together, if you think about all we've said, well, then you can come to the conclusion that Brno is a city that calls out to travelers with its colorful legends and rich history. So yeah, call out could mean you're calling out to someone. Hey, John, come here. I see you from across the street. I haven't seen you in years. Let's have a chat. But in this particular case, it just means it invites you to check it out. It's so interesting that you cannot resist it.
It's attracting you big time. Like when I'm walking down the street in this particular neighborhood, Lindongfan, it calls out to me, come, get some delicious beef noodle soup. It calls out to me very often. I can't resist, and I go to Lindongfan and have a nice big bowl of beef noodles. Yes, that restaurant calls out to me every time I'm in the neighborhood. Anyways, if you ever get the chance, make sure you stop by this charming Czech city. And it's not a Czechoslovakian city, okay? You now have the Czech Republic and Slovakia. They're two different countries, so don't make that particular error. It's a Czech city. CZECH. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to say goodbye for now, but don't go away. The Chinese teacher is waiting in the wings.
Hello 各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分有一个句子写到 Finally, never leave the city without visiting the old town hall and the Brno dragon suspended from its ceiling. 好，这个句子呢，它是用 never 搭配 without， 用这种双重否定的方式来强调肯定的语义。绝对不要没参观旧市政厅就离开这座城市，也就是说，你一定要去造访旧市政厅，绝对不要错过这个景点哦。那除了 never， 我们也可以用 not或是 hardly 等等带有否定意味的字词来搭配 without 加名词或动名词。举例来说 A birthday cake is not complete without candles. 生日蛋糕少了蜡烛就不完整了嘛，那意思就是说生日蛋糕一定要有蜡烛才行哦。好，另外课文句子里面呢有一个单字是 suspend， 它有这种悬挂终止或是暂停的意思，我们来学它的字首字根。好，先来看 PEND pens 或是 pond 这一类的字根，它有悬挂、估量或是权衡的意思。那么在 suspend 这个字当中，它的字首 sus 是来自 sub 表示下方，那么 pend 表示悬挂，向下悬挂。好，就应该可以联想到这个字它有悬吊、悬挂或是悬浮的意思了。我们顺便补充有这一类字根的单字。第一个补充的是 expense， 好，它的字首 ex 表示向外，那么 pense 表示权衡、支付。好，我们在衡量、估算要付出去的钱，这样子应该可以联想到 expense 它有花费、开销、支出的意思。好，第二个补充的是 compensate， 它的字首 com 表示一起，那么 pens 表示权衡， ate 则是动词字尾。同学们可以试着想象，当我们拿两个东西来衡量、估量的时候，如果有一边是不足的，我们就拿东西去补偿，使它均衡，就像放在天平上面，要让它们平衡。所以呢 compensate 它就有这种补偿的意思。好，再来第三个补充的是 dispense， dispense，它的字首 dis 表示分开，那么 pense 表示估量。好，当我们仔细估算好这个数量，然后再分开把它发送出去，用这种方式也许可以联想到 dispense 它有分配、分发的意思。那么第四个补充的是 independent， 好，它的字首 in 表示否定，那么 de 表示向下，字根 pend 则是指悬挂，然后 ent 是形容词字尾。好，什么叫否定、向下、悬挂？同学们可以试着想，当瓜果成熟脱落的时候，它就不会继续向下悬挂在那里嘛，不会再继续依附在某事物下方。而用这种方式，也许可以联想到 independent， 它就有独立、自立的意思。如果把否定字首 in 拿掉，那么 dependent 就是用来形容它是依赖的。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Cellar. The man keeps his wine in a cellar under the house. Shelter. Lost in the woods, the hikers were forced to make a shelter out of leaves and branches. Torture. Even though torture is illegal under international law, the practice still continues. Plague.
In 1662, a plague killed around 100,000 people in London.
Stack. Please stack the empty boxes in a neat pile by the door. Suspend. An LED light was suspended from the ceiling. Terror. She couldn't explain her feelings of terror as the bombs started to land.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It is time now for our discussion starter. We're going to ask a question to start a discussion. So here's the question. What would be at the top of your list to see if you were to visit Brno?
I would like to visit the old town hall and see the so-called dragon. Okay, apparently this dragon is super scary. It put fear into the hearts of all the residents of Brno, but it's actually a crocodile. I want to see this thing, though. Is this a massive crocodile? Is it a tiny crocodile? One way or another, I want to get to the bottom of this because I'm a curious individual.
And you're from Florida and you like reptiles, like alligators and stuff. But for me, well, visiting that castle would be interesting as I like to see things from a bird's eye view, or at least from a very high place, to get my bearings, and then I'll kind of know the next thing I want to check out.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you guys enjoyed reading and learning along with us. I am Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.